morning sun shines on the gleaming hide of a muscular ranch horse. The aroma of bacon and coffee drifts from the wood cook stove at a cow camp. Silver spurs jingle as the men and women of the West get set for another day in the saddle. From the heart of Canada's finest ranching country, this is the Spirit of the West with rancher and horse trainer Hugh McLennan and his collection of music, poetry, and conversations with the folks who live and work with horses and cattle in the Spirit of the West.
Well, let's say you are a well-known mountain trail riding guide and an outfitter with a long and great reputation. And the Prime Minister and his son have booked a 3-day trail ride. What kind of horses do you select for them? That could get all kinds of answers, but Ron Warner had that challenge and he'll talk about it today.
We picked a real super quiet horse for Trudeau, and after we were out a day, I traded horses with him because he was actually a good rider.
You'll hear from Ron Warner and Byron Palmer this week. Both of them were on our recent Spirit of the West cruise, and they'll talk about everything from packing into the Rockies to riding polo ponies. And Baxter Black takes us back to when he was a young, large animal vet and what he learned about preg testing.
But I learned a lesson. When you go to culling somebody else's cows, you're taking your life in your hands.
And guess what? More about meatless burgers on the Rangeland News.
To be the first in the world to market the new products from the new technology.
In the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight, a good one from a guy who's been there and done it, Dale Thompson.
Appies, Arabs, even mules, I've stepped across their back. And I've never seen one cow that cared when I have jerked my slack.
And I will visit with a real icon in the horse industry of Western Canada, Ron Warner, right after Tom Hyatt, the Arizona singing cowboy, gets us going.
A snowflake is falling, the wild goose is calling, the air's getting frosty and cold. My old aching bone says that old Arizona is a place for a cowboy this old. For 65 years I've looked past horses' ears at great cowboy and country I've known. Rode 38 outfits in 9 western range states, not once on a place of my own. It's time to make changes, new horses, new ranges, new bosses, new cooks and new cows. To tie hard or dally in mountain or valley, it's freedom this lifestyle allows. No matter the changes, they're all cattle ranges, small ranches and big outfits too. The fact that I can't shirk all of its cow work, it's all that I know how to do. Learn new ways to work 'em, to rope 'em and jerk 'em, it's all at the boss's desire. Some to heel and drag 'em, some to ropes and shag 'em, each calf still ends up at the fire. Quick throws with short ropes, long throws with high hopes, brush poppers or bold buckaroos. They knew when I hired on that someday I'd ride on. I earned it, I paid all my dues. It's time to make changes, new horses, new ranges, new bosses, new cooks and new cows. To tie hard or dally in mountain or valley, it's freedom this lifestyle allows. No matter the changes, they're all cattle ranges, small ranches and big outfits too. The fact that I can't shirk all of its cow work, it's all that I know how to do. Cinch double or single, my spurs always jingle in sagebrush and cedar or pine. It's leggings in Texas or chinks on ZXs, this life and this work are just fine. Rode green broncs or made ones on long trots or wild runs, wide circles out under the sky. And someday, who knows where, out yonder, out somewhere I'll ride till I fall off and die. It's time to make changes, new horses, new ranges, new bosses, new cooks and new cows. To tie hard or dally in mountain or valley, it's freedom this lifestyle allows. No matter the change they're all cattle ranges, small ranches, and big outfits too. The fact that I can't shirk all of its cow work, it's all that I know how to do. The fact that I can't shirk all of its cow work, it's all that I know how to do.
From the 1920s on, trail riding in the Canadian Rockies has been something on the bucket list of a lot of people, and one of the best-known outfitters and guides in the history of those trail rides was Bud Brewster, and later he sold part of that operation to Ron Warner and Mac McKenzie, becoming the well-known Warner-McKenzie Trail Rides. And guess what? I cornered Ron Warner and his good friend, rancher and polo player Byron Palmer, who were both on our recent Spirit of the West cruise.
I went to Banff in 1962 and been there ever since. Still there, but sold out 4 years ago. So it was a good experience. And
I can remember a fellow by the name of Bill Bagley, I think. I don't know if you know that name or not. But
I worked with him a lot. Bill Bagley was a lifelong cowboy.
Yeah.
I think he lived to about 95.
He did.
And he was very good at helping young guys learn and mature, and a favorite with the visitors also, great with people. His dad worked with several different groups with, I think, maybe rodeo horses and stuff, but I don't.
So you must have had a huge string of everything from pack horses to good saddle horses and dude safe horses, that kind of thing.
Yeah, we had a long career. I went to Banff in '62, and Mac McKenzie and I started working together. And in 1964, we started working with Bud Brewster, and we worked with Bud Brewster for 10 years, and then bought him out in Banff in 1974, and we bought out 3 or 4 other outfitters, and Mac and I divided up in 1980. So it's been a long time.
That's a lot of campfires, a lot of packing and unpacking, and how many diamond hitches.
Yeah. Well, we were lucky. We had a lot of good staff, and our company really grew a lot during that time. I suppose a lot to do with the internet and different marketing. But we'd started some different rides and built a lodge, and had circle trips, so we call them, up in the Cascade River area. And it was very busy for a lot of years, and I miss it, but not having to hire so many staff.
Coming up, Ron Warner recalls hosting Canada's Prime Minister Pierre Elliott Trudeau and his sons, one of whom is our present head of state, when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. Warner and McKenzie and their outfitting and guiding operations in the Canadian Rockies have been featured in many magazine and newspaper articles, TV shows, and even movies. And Ron Warner was happy to share a little bit of his history.
And you would have had guests from all over the world, I would think.
Oh, for sure. Oh, yeah. We had a great number of worldwide visitors. Had Trudeau and his boys out on a trip.
Really?
Yeah.
This is Justin or Pierre when he was...
No, Pierre and the boys. That was, can't remember what.
Justin and Sasha, I think it was.
Yeah, there were three boys. Yeah. And we were out with them for 4 days, I think. So.
Really? Yeah. They were on horseback?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Somehow, the picture of Pierre Trudeau on a horse is hard to sort of...
Well, actually, that's interesting, because when they came, we picked a real super quiet horse for Trudeau. And after we were out a day, I traded horses with him, because he was actually a good rider.
He was.
He was a good rider, and he was a good guy to be with in the backcountry. Most of us Albertans had a little trouble with his politics, but he was entertaining.
National energy policy.
Yeah. So, no, I enjoyed being with him, and it was a good trip.
Ron and his longtime friend Byron Palmer were visiting when we had this conversation, and Byron is going to talk about his ranching history in Alberta and in Texas after this fine song. And I just love riding under that big blue November sky when the sun is out, the ground is frozen, and there's just a little bit of snow on the ground. The other day, my old neck rag was kind of flapping in the breeze as Cody and I headed back to the barn after a great ride, and it kind of made me think of one of my very favorite Ben Crane songs.
Gold aspen leaves are slapping, the fallen ones are scratching along the ground. My wild rag sets to snapping, and I wish that me and Spook was homeward bound. The sky is turning yeller, the boss cow starts to beller. Soon the herd will head for cover in the trees. It started just this morning, the weather seemed to promise hot and dry. But it came here without warning, the cold front pushing flurries on a slide. Soon the ground will harden, and then we'll have to pardon the intrusion of another winter's freeze. Oh, the blue Alberta sky, oh, you're blue, and so am I. Somehow I'm never ready, but it comes on just as steady, and it leaves me longing for the warm embrace of the blue Alberta sky. We've brought the herd down lower, they're scattered all content like in my view. Life has gotten slower now that feeding is the only job to do. In wanderings my mind goes back to our little one-room square log shack, where you wait for me to come home once again. Oh, the blue Alberta sky, that same blue is in your eyes. Will you accept the lonely, knowing that it's only until we can finally claim our little piece of the blue Alberta sky. Oh, the blue Alberta sky.
The amazing mind of Ben Crane creates cartoons, writes songs, and raises eyebrows everywhere. We sure had a great bunch of folks along on our recent Spirit of the West cruise to the Maritimes in New England, and among them, Ron Warner.
And Byron Palmer, your name tag says Albany, Texas, and I've got a lot of friends in Texas, but I don't even know where Albany is.
Well, it's a long story, but our family was from Albany, Texas. My father was born there. My grandfather moved there in, I think it was 1909, to run a ranch for a big Texas rancher there. And that was where our background started in Albany, Texas. And then my father, after World War II, got into the drilling business. And my wife's family was in the drilling business. And they all decided Canada offered a real positive look for all their drilling equipment and everything. So we decided to move up there, and my dad talked it over with us, and we are all in agreement. And Loris was quite young then. I was 7 and she was 5. But we moved to Canada, and we lived there until about 18 years ago when my dad's sister passed away in Texas. And then we moved back there for the winters because we're a little bit, at our age, we like the warmer winters. And then we come back in the summer to Alberta because we're citizens of both countries and love both countries, have a lot to do with both countries, and never want to give up citizenship in either one of them. So that's kind of our background, and the cattle business has always been in our blood. And my dad, first thing he did is buy ranches, and Pincher Creek was his big one, and we were west of Stavely for a long time. And then he sold that to John Cross and bought the old Mormon Church Ranch down there, the NH. And that's where he ranched until he passed away, and my brothers are still there.
Wow.
And that's Senator Cochran's old ranch.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, what a lot of history there.
It really is.
You'd be riding in the trails of some of these long-time historical figures. Gosh, Tom Lynch and John Ware.
That's correct. And at Millerville, we've really loved that area too. I would have stayed with my dad down at Pincher Creek, but he and I thought too much alike. So I decided it was time to leave that colony and go north to Millerville.
Oh, for goodness.
Well, Byron will talk about the sport of polo, among many other things, later, and next Baxter Black remembers his first visit to a ranch for preg testing when he was a young vet, when the Spirit of the West continues right after this.
Howdy, friends. This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan, and I'll be right back after this with a little peek at one more year. Well, friends, thanks for listening. It'll be no surprise that I've published a beautiful new hardback book called A Commotion in Rhyme. It fits in the bunkhouse, the outhouse, the bookstore, the library, or the cookbook. Unfortunately, it won't fit in a cupcake. Buy 2, get 1 free. A commotion? Oh. Call 800-654-2550 or BaxterBlack.com. Come to think of it, it might fit in a Caesar salad. Now, when you go to veterinary school, they fill you with all this knowledge. They pound it in your brain like sand in a rat hole, and then they turn you loose on the unsuspecting public. You ever had a brand new veterinarian out to your place? You think you're scared. Well, boy, I wasn't any different. I got out of veterinary school just bursting with this knowledge, and I'm out there the first fall preg checking on this big old ranch. And I find a few old cows, as far as I'm concerned, need culling, so I point this out in my best professional manner and cut her off to the side. But I learned a lesson. When you go to culling somebody else's cows, you're taking your life in your hands. Here's a conversation between the green young veterinary and the experienced cow man. "What's the story on that good old cow?" the bow-legged cowboy asked. "Well, she's sort of gimpy on the left hind leg, and her breathing's kind of fast." "Shucks, I remember when she was born, and it wasn't that long ago." "Well, somebody bobbed her tail last year, but hell, I guess you ought to know." You bet your life I know that cow. She's a good one as I've saw." "Well, I just thought since she was getting thin and got a big lump on her jaw." "That ain't nothing. Just a little knot," the bow-legged cowboy said. "Yeah, but one eye's blue, and she lappied her calf, and she ain't got a tooth in her head." "Listen, kid, I remember that cow. Well, I even milked her for a while." "Sure, but she's got a swing bag and one big tit and skin like a crocodile." "Kid, you got to admit she knows the range and every water hole." "Well, I hate to tell you, she's open now, and these prolapse stitches won't hold." "Well, she's nothing to me. Don't get me wrong, I know she's getting old." Well, you're the boss, and if you want to keep her, whatever you say goes. But if it is me, I'd cull her fast and never shed a tear. Well, I got a little grass out behind the house. Let's run her another year. This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan. Thanks for listening.
Looking for an ideal Christmas gift or stocking stuffer? How about a weekend pass to the 23rd Annual Kamloops Cowboy Festival, March 14th to 17th, 2019. Just about the finest lineup of talent we've ever had. Michael Fleming.
On the back roads of Utah near the San Rafael, an old rough stock rider strides through the corral.
Gene Prescott.
Then he'd swing down from the saddle, and he'd take me in his arms.
Tim Huss.
The band's tuning up, and they're stocking the bar. Ranchers are coming from near and far.
Special guest Lewis the Big Rig McIver, and so many more. The BC Cowboy Hall of Fame inductions, dinner shows, daytime entertainment, a spectacular art and gear show, workshops on everything from songwriting to saddle making. The best place to get all the information is bcchs.com. And to order tickets, call 1-888-763-2221. Now, just ahead of the Rangeland news, Mike Blakely's new album, The Outside Circle, has a bunch of songs that have some real authenticity. Like this one, Don't Ever Sell Your Saddle.
Along the country road, I saw a saddle one fine morning. Cowboy rig for sale, a sign said tied around the horn. So I stopped to look it over, and a man in boots and hat slid off of the tailgate neath the shade tree where he sat. He said, I see you're in the market for a sure enough western tack. Well, this one here has rode the hump off more than one broncs back. I had it built in Idaho where I learned to buckaroo. Son, you've no idea the wrecks this saddle's pulled me through. Don't ever sell your saddle, son, that's what my old pa said. And I promised him I'd keep this one until the day I was dead. But through hard knocks and the coulees and troubles on the trail, now I'm down to breaking promises, my saddle is for sale. And then he said, up in the Badlands of Wyoming, I once roped an outlaw bull, but I was mounted well and straddle of this custom hull. That rawhide held like steel, and that tree it wouldn't crack. No fancy store-bought tooling could have held that old bull back. Well, I could tell more stories, son, but we'd be here all day. I'm sure you got things to do, and I must soon be on my way. I need to buy some diesel fuel to fill up my old truck. I've got to get to Santa Fe, my paw's run out of luck. Don't ever sell your saddle, son, that's what my old pa said. And I promised him I'd keep this one until the day I was dead. But through hard knocks and the coulees and troubles on the trail, now I'm down to breaking promises, my saddle is for sale. Well, I knew what it cost to drive a truck to Santa Fe, and he took the cash I offered, and then he was on his way. And when he left, I carried that old saddle on my back into his barn, and I hung it there on his own saddle rack. Since cowboys won't take handouts, I saw just one trail to ride to help him keep his saddle and his promise and his pride. I just helped him get to Santa Fe. I knew he wouldn't fail, but I did not buy that saddle, 'cause some things just ain't for sale. Don't ever sell your saddle, son, that's what his old pa said. And he promised that he'd keep it till the day that he was dead. But through hard knocks in the coulees and troubles on the trail, he was down to breaking promises, his saddle was for sale. Through hard knocks in the coulees and troubles on the trail, I did not buy his saddle, 'cause some things just ain't for sale.
News of the rangeland, a roundup of news and coming events from around the West.
At the top of page 1, it says it sounds like science fiction. Meat not coming from livestock, but being formulated in the lab. Here's Gary Crawford with a look at how soon that might happen and how it might be marketed.
Some of the companies here and in other nations that are doing the research and product development on growing food products in laboratories from cells are saying that those products are very close to being ready for the market, maybe a year or two. During a meeting about this here at USDA Tuesday, this question from reporters to FDA Commissioner Scott Gottlieb and Agriculture Secretary Sonny Perdue. Will the federal labeling and safety regulations be ready when the products are?
I'm very confident, given where we are right now, that we're going to be able to make some public articulation of how this framework is going to work well in advance of any application coming in.
If we can get this done in 2019, I think that'd be probably pretty fast for federal purposes.
Both men said they want the U.S. to be the first in the world to market the new products from the new technology.
We're seeing a lot of interest in the venture capital community and some of the early development. So I think you might see first products launched here in the U.S.
I think that's a theme of our administration. America first.
America first. In Washington, Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
And a plant-based tuna alternative is now available for consumers. North Carolina-based Atlantic Natural Foods says its Tuno, made from non-GMO textured soy flour, is now distributed to major retailers under the Loma Linda brand. And according to the company, converting canned tuna consumers to a plant-based alternative represents a big market opportunity. A&F founder and chairman J. Douglas Hines was an investor of the largest distant water fishing fleet operation in the Western Pacific, and he says he experienced firsthand the strain being placed on global fish stocks. Animal activists have shifted to new tactics, and more have started launching lawsuits on behalf of animals. While courts in the U.S. have not ruled in their favor, more cases from large, well-funded animal rights groups are being filed. According to Michael Pardo, he's a partner in the law firm Duane Morris that defends companies against animal activist attacks. It's handled cases for food, clothing companies, exhibitions, and laboratories that use animals. The company has also dealt with regulations regarding animals. More livestock producers are eligible for tax deferrals after the Canadian Federal Agriculture Department expanded the eligible regions on the 31st of October. An initial list of eligible areas released in September drew some criticism from a lot of sectors for excluding many regions that suffered from drought, potentially forcing cattle producers to sell breeding stock due to feeding shortages. The tax deferral allows producers to defer a portion of their 2018 sales proceeds from breeding stock until 2019. The cost of replacing the animals in 2019 should offset the deferred income, thereby reducing some of the tax burden. The wider area eligible for tax deferral includes almost all of Saskatchewan south of Saskatoon and a large area south of southern Alberta, south of Edmonton. Area on both sides of the Alberta-Saskatchewan border, southwest of Saskatoon and east of Red Deer remains outside the designated area. Cattle producers across the country support a plan to lobby the federal government to create a permanent tax deferral system that would apply in times of disaster. November the 26th, there's regular cattle sale at the BC Livestock Co-op yards in Okanagan Falls. The Kamloops regular sale is November 27th. And November 28th, Williams Lake has a bred cow and bred heifer sale. And you can get the schedules, all the information, and watch the sales streaming live at bclivestock.bc.ca. Meanwhile, at the Innisfail auction market, they're booking cattle for bred cow and bred heifer sales, lots of them coming up. And, of course, regular cattle sales every Wednesday. And a bit of a time change here. Now the start time is 8 a.m. You can get all the information at InnisfailAuctionMarket.com. Okay, and that takes us down to the final item. And this is something kind of personal. Billy and I were staying in a little suite in Vancouver last winter that the Kidney Foundation makes available to transplant patients from out of the area at a very reasonable rent. This was after Louis the Big Rig McIver gave me one of his kidneys. November 22nd actually was the date. And during my nearly 3 years on dialysis, I had what was called a perm cath inserted into my chest with 2 tubes that would connect to the dialysis machine. And while I had that, swimming or sitting in a hot tub was not possible. And of course, after the transplant, I didn't need it. So once it was removed, we decided to try out the pool at the suite. So we put on our swimsuits and walked down the hall to the door that said pool room. And we walked in, and what we saw was a bunch of old guys with long sticks pushing balls around on a big green table. And that's the Rangeland News. Coming up in the Urban Saddles and Western Wear Horse Training File, a fairly long list of things that can really scare a horse when you're riding him, and some suggestions on how you might handle it. More from Byron Palmer and Ron Warner, and more good music when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. If you ride horses very much at all, it's inevitable that at some point something will scare that horse. It's just their nature. And the more you ride, the more you need to prepare for that. And I'll have a list of a few of the things that might get your horse into his flight mode very quickly on the Urban Saddles and Western Wear Horse Training File coming right up. So what are you doing from August 29th to September 13th, 2019? Well, Billy and I will be hosting our 18th annual Spirit of the West cruise, and here's where we'll be going. We'll fly to Dublin, Ireland. We'll be visiting an Irish thoroughbred breeding farm. We'll be hosted by the Irish Cattle Breeding Federation, and then we'll sail to some historic and beautiful places including Cork, Belfast, then Glasgow and Inverness, Scotland. And we might even get pictures of Nessie the Loch Ness Monster. And we'll have stops in Paris and London. Now, this is something we've always wanted to do, and we'd love to have you join us. Get all the information at 1-800-530-0131. And check our Spirit of the West cruise page at hugh-mclennan.com and our cruise Facebook page.
Now it's time for the Horse Training File, brought to you by Irvine Tack and Western Wear, Canada's largest Western store.
Urban Tack and Western Wear is Canada's largest Western retailer with over 60,000 square feet of everything Western. This Western wonderland has an endless variety of tack, boots, jeans, and outerwear with new items arriving daily. With over 1,000 saddles to choose from, you're bound to say Urban's is totally a unique place to shop. The kids will love the styles. You love the quality. Urban Tack and Western Wear off exit 305 on Highway 2 by Crossfield, open 7 days a week. Online at urbans.ca. What are some of the most scary things you can encounter when you're out riding, and what is most likely to scare the daylights out of your horse? Oh boy. Well, just about anything, and always when you least expect it. Their survival instincts and their binocular vision and quick reflexes will put a horse into a flight mode almost any time they perceive a threatening situation. I was trotting along a nice trail the other day when my good old solid mare swapped ends and tried to leave the country when she saw a strange-looking log that had just come down. But with good solid horses like her, as soon as you bring their mind back to you, that's all over in a few seconds. Now, here are a few things that have the potential to really spook horses, not in any order. Let's say you're riding by the barn with a steep tin roof just as a big bunch of snow slides off the tin roof behind you. That'll get them going. You're riding down a country road after you crest a little hill and head down. A loud dirt bike with a rider in a multicolored outfit roars up behind you. You're riding through a pasture and you come to an open meadow just as a bunch of loose horses burst out of the trees and come galloping towards you. That'll probably make your horse snort and his tail might be up in the air. Or let's say you're riding along a willow-lined creek when a sandhill crane explodes out of the creek and flies over your head. I've had that happen, and I've hit the ground when that's happened too. Or let's say you're in a piece of open country and a helicopter approaches, and the way the sun hits the rotors, the shadows whirl around you and your horse. The guy I know got bucked off when that happened. You're riding along a trail through a brushy pasture when about 60 fast-running black yearling steers come thundering up behind you. Now, these are just a few of the things you can expect to deal with, and you might think, boy, I'd be better to avoid all these situations that might scare my horse. But I think protecting your horse from anything that might scare him will not be helpful. I think that the never-ending process of making your horse's connection stronger will work better if you can be confident enough to take him out of his comfort zone within reason. The best and most reliable horses have experienced all these things and a lot more, and I think it's a lot better to help the horse adapt to the environment than to try to change the environment to suit the horse. And for Irvin Saddles and Western Wear, that's the Horse Training File. Something that keeps our horses' minds and bodies working well is that daily feeding of Hoffman's Horse Ration. You can find out all about it at hoffmanshorseration.com. Looking for an ideal Christmas gift or stocking stuffer? How about a weekend pass to the 23rd Annual Kamloops Cowboy Festival, March 14th to 17th, 2019. Just about the finest lineup of talent we've ever had. Michael Fleming.
On the back roads of Utah near the San Rafael, an old rough stock rider strides through the corral.
Gene Prescott.
Then he'd swing down from the saddle, and he'd take me in his arms.
Tim Huss.
The band's tuning up, and they're stocking the bar. Ranchers are coming from near and far.
Special guest Lewis the Big Rig McIver, and so many more. The BC Cowboy Hall of Fame inductions, dinner shows, daytime entertainment, a spectacular art and gear show, workshops on everything from songwriting to saddle making. The best place to get all the information is bcchs.com. And to order tickets, call 1-888-763-2221. Ron Warner, longtime legend in the Rocky Mountain trail riding world, along with Byron Palmer, were among the big group of folks on our recently concluded 17th Annual Spirit of the West Cruise and Tour in September. And Byron's name tag said Albany, Texas.
Just locate it for me in the States.
Well, if you go west of Dallas-Fort Worth about 120 miles, 150 you come to Abilene.
Oh, sure.
And you come back a little bit further and it's Albany. And it's a small town of less than 2,000 people, but it's old-time ranching people that have been there for a long, long time. They made a lot of money in their mineral rights, which is oil, which in Texas all people have that right. So, I mean, they've supplemented their cattle, but they love that lifestyle and keep at it, and they'll never change. They really have a tradition there, and it's a famous one.
Yeah. We've got some friends at, just west of Abilene at Ovalo, I think.
Okay.
Gene and Gary Prescott, well known in the Western music circles.
Absolutely. I've heard of Ovalo.
Oh, yeah.
It's a nice area of Texas.
Yeah, we had another couple that we knew real well that were at Mertzen, just west of San Angelo a little ways, and I actually got to spend a few days riding with him down there.
Great.
Nice time of year.
Well, that's the neat part of it. Well, we're down there in Texas. We get to go to all the big rodeos and see a lot of people from the old-time ranches and visit with them and get to know them, and it's a great place to spend the winter. And we're slowing down on cattle ourselves. We're thinking of selling some of our cattle and renting our grass out and taking life a little easier because we're getting up there in age, and hopefully our kids will take over someday and do a bigger, better job than we've done.
And what about the Polo ponies? I understand you've got a kind of a background there.
I do. I started Polo about 35 years ago, and actually, Ron that's sitting here with me, he used to help train horses for the Cross family. So he's been around Polo and going to California and Spokane and places like that. I started it years ago. My father wanted to be a polo player. He started when he was older. I should have started earlier. I never got really good at it, but I enjoyed the game. And mostly I enjoyed, buying the horses, training them, breaking them for Polo to try to supplement my bad habit, which was Polo, of course.
Right, yeah.
And my good wife let me know that. It's a bad habit. So,
well, we sure enjoyed that visit, and we hope to have a little more from Byron and Ron in the coming weeks. And now, here's Eli Barzy.
Daylight fades to the dimming dusk as I leave this road behind. One more mile on a horse I trust brings a peaceful thought to mind. the morn will bring hope for sunshine without fail. For now I'll hang my bridal ring and say goodnight to the trail. Good night to the trail. Good night. Good night to the trail. Good night. The days are long and the nights are short, but this time will soon be gone. I'll send some notes with a good report of how we're getting on. I don't often e'er complain, except this bread is mighty stale. I've had enough of this rough terrain, singing goodnight to the trail. Good night to the trail. Good night. Good night to the trail. Good night. When a cowboy takes his final ride, a new journey has begun. We'll think of him from time to time, and a new song will be sung. The moon will always light the way in its thousand shades of pale. Turn and give just one last wave and say goodnight to the trail. Good night to the trail. Good night. Good night to the trail. Good night. Adios.
Our classic Song of the West segment is next, along with the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight, when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. Bob Wagner was inducted into the Western Music Hall of Fame a couple of weeks ago at the big International Western Music Association Convention and Festival in Albuquerque. I think Bob's over 90 now, but you'd never know it. Well deserved. And here's what the late Rex Allen Sr. had to say about Bob. Bob Wagner is one of the most gifted men I have ever known. His talent as a painter, musician, and songwriter is just not something God gives to one man very often. The words of Rex Allen Sr. So it's only fitting, I think, that Bob Wagner has this week's classic Song of the West, a seldom heard, beautiful, pure cowboy song written by Aim Morehart, Just a Wisp of Smoke.
Just a wisp of smoke on the darkening sky, and wherever it rises, there am I. My home is the glow with my horse close by and my dusty bed. Just a wisp of smoke on the evening sky from a sagebrush fire, and home am I'm a stranger in town where I don't fit in, but under the sky I'm the next of kin. There's a starry roof tree above me where I lay my head. It's the ancient lodge where my fathers dwelt before me, and its walls are bounded by fading flickers of firelight, and it's home to me just as long as life shall last. Just a wisp of smoke and my day's complete, where I kneel with my fry pan in the gentle heat, and I say a prayer to the man on high for my fire and my food and my star-filled sky. Just a wisp of smoke, just a wisp of smoke.
Whenever cowboys get together, the conversation doesn't take long to turn to horses, and at times various breeds, and their suitability as ranch horses. Dale Thompson has some interesting thoughts on that in this week's Cowboy Poetry Spotlight.
Walk or ride? The only horse I'll ever ride will be a quarter horse. To me, that way of thinking is a little bit off course. The man who stated that is completely buckaroo. But what would he be riding before a quarter horse was new? Me, I'm from a different school. You ride just what you're handed. How good the breed of horse was depended where you landed. Appies, Arabs, even mules, I've stepped across their back, and I've never seen one cow that cared when I have jerked my slack. There never was a calf concerned when bogged down in the mire, or one that worried about color or breed with his butt dragged to the fire. Or your rope horse has wrecked a shoulder trying to stretch a snotty bull, but there's an Arab that can do the job even if he is a cull. When you're way back in the mountains and your quarter horse comes up lame, the pack mule you are using never made the Hall of Fame, but his back will hold a saddle and keep your feet off of the ground and get you back across the river when your choice is that or drown. Or when you have a full-time riding job but you're way down in your luck and the only cayuse available is out of Saskatchewan by truck. It's been my way of thinking, and I guess I'm one to talk, but I've always thought an ugly ride sure beat a handsome walk.
Well, thank you so much for making the ride this week. And, of course, thanks to our great support crew, Mark and Kathy McMillan. They just keep things in order for us for so many things, and they're working hard right now on the Kamloops Cowboy Festival for 2019. And if you need tractor parts, any make, any year, just see Mark's page, bctractorparts.com. And on our way out, I thought I might share some ideas for Christmas shopping for the cowboy in your life. For one thing, I would suggest a weekend package to the Kamloops Cowboy Festival. Or we have the Best of 2017 CD from the Spirit of the West. Just go to our merchandise page at hugh-mclennan.com. And while you're there, you might check out Crackers Come Here, paperback or audio book that I do the narration on, and it's a heartwarming story about a service dog and his owner, who is a good friend of ours. Or how about this, a brand new book called Beyond the Next Range, a Cowboy's Story from Miles Kingdom. It's getting rave reviews, and you can order it by email at kposs77@gmail.com. That's kposs77@gmail.com. Till next week, I'm Hugh McLennan. Hope to see you down the trail somewhere real soon.